My beloved child, before you listen any further, stop trying to be strong for just one moment. There is a burden resting on your shoulders that I never asked you to carry. You believed it was your responsibility because no one else stepped forward. You smiled while your heart grew weary. You comforted everyone while silently breaking inside. But today, I want you to hear something that may change everything you believe about your life. What if the weight exhausting your soul was never yours to begin with? Stay with me, because before this message ends, you will know exactly what to lay down and who has been waiting to carry it for you. I have seen you for a long time, longer than you have known how to count the years. Before the first morning you opened your eyes and learned the sound of your own name, I already knew the shape of your heart. I watched you when you were small and unafraid, before the world taught you to measure your worth by what you could carry. I watched you grow older, and I watched the weight begin to settle, quietly, the way dust settles on a shelf no one remembers to clean. You thought you were alone in those early mornings when you stared at the ceiling, wondering how you would face another day. You were not alone. I was there, closer than your own breath, closer than the thought you have not yet spoken aloud. You have wondered, more than once, whether anyone truly sees you. Not the version of you that performs and provides and holds everything together, but the real you, the tired one, the one who aches quietly while everyone else assumes you are fine. I see that one. I have always seen that one. When you laughed at the table but your chest felt hollow, I saw it. When you said the words people needed to hear, even as your own heart cried out for someone to say them to you, I heard that silent cry. I did not turn away. I have never turned away from you, not for a single hour of your life. There is a difference between being known by people and being known by me. People know what you show them. They know the schedule you keep, the role you play, the smile you offer when you walk into a room. I know what lives beneath all of that. I know the nights you have spent wrestling with thoughts you have never told another living soul. I know the prayers you have started and could not finish because the tears came faster than the words. I know the version of you that exists only in the quiet, when no one else is watching and you finally let your shoulders drop just for a moment before you pick everything back up again. I want you to understand something before we go any further. I have not been distant from your pain. I have not been a silent observer watching from somewhere far away, indifferent to what you carry. I have walked closer to you than you have ever walked to yourself. Every time you thought you were facing your struggles in isolation, I was already there, present in the room, present in the silence, present in the space between your breaths when you did not have the strength to speak. You were never abandoned. You were never forgotten. And you are not forgotten now, in this very moment, as these words reach you. So before we speak about the burden you carry, I want you to receive this truth first, because everything else depends on it. I am not a distant father keeping score from a throne far away. I am the one who has been with you in every room you have ever cried in. I am the one who knew your name before your parents chose it, who knew your story before the first page was written. You are not invisible to me. You have never been invisible to me. And the weight you carry, the one that has bent your back and stolen your rest, I am about to show you something about it that will change the way you carry everything from this day forward. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people and still feeling unseen. And I know that loneliness better than you imagine. You can sit in a crowded room, laughter rising on every side of you, and still feel like the only person who understands your actual life is sealed somewhere far behind your eyes, hidden from everyone present. That feeling has visited you more times than you have admitted out loud. I want you to know that I was present in every one of those crowded rooms, and I was not fooled by your smile the way the people around you were. I saw straight through it every single time, and what I saw never made me love you less. You have asked, in your quietest moments, whether you matter beyond what you produce, beyond what you provide, beyond what you fix for others. That question has haunted you on ordinary afternoons and in the middle of restless nights. I am answering it now, plainly, so there is no more room for doubt. You matter because I created you, not because of anything you have accomplished or anything you have managed to hold together. Your worth was settled before you ever drew a single breath, and nothing you have done or failed to do has ever changed that settled truth. You have carried more than anyone realizes, my child. and far more than was ever meant for one set of shoulders. There is the weight of being the strong one in your family, the person everyone turns to when the storm comes, the one who is expected to have answers, even when your own heart is breaking. There is the weight of financial pressure, the quiet panic of bills arriving faster than the money does, the sleepless calculations you run in your mind at 3 in the morning, trying to make numbers stretch further than they were ever designed to go. There is the weight of pain you have hidden so well that even the people closest to you have no idea it exists. Pain from wounds that never fully closed, pain you learned to smile through because showing it felt like weakness. There is the weight of expectations placed on you long before you had any say in the matter, the hopes your parents carried for your life, the path they imagined for you, the version of success they whispered into your childhood, without ever asking if it was the dream you wanted for yourself. There is the weight of feeling like a failure, the quiet shame that creeps in when you compare the life you are living to the life you thought you would have by now. There is the weight of mistakes from your past, choices you wish you could undo, words you wish you could take back, seasons of your life you would erase entirely if you had the power to rewrite them. There is the weight of words spoken to you that should never have been spoken at all. Someone called you worthless when you were young, and that word lodged itself somewhere deep, returning to whisper itself back to you on your hardest days. Someone told you that you would never amount to anything, and even now, decades later, you still hear that voice in moments of doubt. Someone walked away from you and left you to wonder what was wrong with you, as if love were a test you had failed, rather than a gift that was never truly offered. I was there for every one of those moments. I heard every word. I saw every tear you swallowed because you believed crying in front of others was a luxury you could not afford. There is also the quiet weight of comparison, the kind that creeps in while you scroll through nothing more than your own memories, measuring your life against the lives of people who seem to have arrived somewhere you have not yet reached. You wonder why their path looked easier, why their burdens seemed lighter, why they appear to move through the world without the same heaviness pressing on their chest. What you do not see is the private weight they carry behind closed doors, the version of themselves they also hide from the world the same way you hide yours. Comparison has cost you joy that belonged to you, joy you were entitled to feel in your own season, on your own timeline, without measuring it against anyone else's. There is the weight of caring for others while no one seems to notice that you, too, are running low. You have shown up for friends in crisis, sat beside family members in hospital rooms, listened patiently to people who needed to be heard, all while your own reserves quietly emptied with no one stepping in to refill them. You became so accustomed to being the giver that receiving began to feel foreign, even uncomfortable, even though your heart was desperate for someone, anyone, to ask how you were truly doing and wait long enough to hear the honest answer. I know why your shoulders ache, my child. It is not because you are weak. It is because you have been holding things that were never designed to be held by one person alone. You were never meant to be the sole foundation for everyone around you. You were never meant to absorb every disappointment, carry every expectation, and silence every need of your own in order to meet the needs of others. You have been pouring out from a cup that has had no one pouring back into it, and still you wonder why you feel empty. I am not telling you this to shame you. I am telling you this because I want you to finally understand the source of your exhaustion, so that healing can begin at the root and not merely at the surface. There is something I need you to hear now, something you have likely never been told in quite this way before. Not every burden resting on your shoulders actually belongs to you. I want you to sit with that truth for a moment, because it is going to change the way you see your entire life. Somewhere along the way, you began collecting weight that was never assigned to you in the first place. You picked it up so naturally, so instinctively, that you never stopped to ask whether it was yours to carry. You simply assumed that because it landed near you, it must be your responsibility. Some of what you carry was left behind by other people. A parent who never healed from their own wounds passed their unhealed pain onto you without ever meaning to, and you absorbed it as a child absorbs everything, without question, without resistance. A relationship that ended in betrayal left you holding shame that belonged entirely to the one who broke trust, yet somehow you walked away believing the fault was yours. A friend who needed someone to blame chose you, and instead of setting that accusation down, you carried it for years, letting it shape how you saw yourself. Some of what you carry was placed on you by a world that measures worth by productivity, by appearance, by how much you can accomplish before you are allowed to rest. Society whispered that your value depends on your achievements, and you believed it long enough to exhaust yourself chasing approval that was never going to satisfy you, because approval built on performance always demands more than you have left to give. You were taught that rest is laziness, that needing help is weakness, that your worth must be earned every single day through output and proof. None of that came from me. None of that reflects the truth of who I created you to be. And some of what you carry did not even begin with you. It traveled through your bloodline, passed down from generation to generation, an inheritance of fear, of anxiety, of broken patterns that no one ever stopped to examine. Your grandparents carried wounds they never spoke about, and those wounds shaped how they raised your parents, and your parents carried that shaping into how they raised you. And somewhere in that long chain, pain became inheritance, and you received it without ever choosing it. You did not create that weight. You simply happened to be born into a family still carrying it, and you picked it up the way a child picks up anything left lying on the ground, without knowing it was never meant to be theirs. You have spent your whole life believing that because something touched you, it became your responsibility. That belief has cost you more than you realize. It has cost you sleep, peace, joy, and years you can never get back. But I am telling you now, with the same certainty that holds the stars in place, that you are allowed to set down what was never yours to carry. You did not fail by carrying it for this long. You simply did not know. And now that you know, everything can begin to change. Think about the times you absorbed someone else's anger, as though it were evidence of your own failure, when in truth, their anger had been building long before you ever entered the room. Think about the times you carried the disappointment of a parent who never resolved their own unmet dreams, allowing their unspoken regret to settle into your chest as though it belonged there. Think about the friendships where you carried both sides of the effort, both sides of the forgiveness, both sides of the understanding, while the other person carried nothing at all. None of that weight was assigned to you by me. It accumulated because no one ever taught you that you were allowed to set it back down where you found it. I want you to begin separating, piece by piece, what genuinely belongs to you from what you have simply been holding out of habit. Ask yourself honestly which burdens are the natural consequence of your own choices, and which ones were handed to you by circumstances entirely outside your control. This distinction matters more than you know, because confusion between the two has kept you trapped in guilt that was never yours to feel, and exhaustion that was never yours to bear. There is a strength in you that I placed there on purpose, a resilience that has carried you through storms that would have broken someone less determined. I am proud of that strength, and I do not want you to misunderstand what I am about to say as criticism of who you are. But I have watched your strength slowly become something else, something I never intended for it to be. I have watched your strength become a prison, quietly closing in around you while everyone outside assumes you are simply fine, simply capable, simply unbreakable. Because you are strong, people learn to lean on you without asking whether you had anything left to give. They came to you in their crises, and you showed up again and again because that is who you are. But somewhere in the constant showing up, people stopped checking on you. They stopped wondering whether you were tired. They stopped asking if you needed support, because in their minds, you were the one who provided support, not the one who required it. You became the strong one so completely that your own exhaustion became invisible, even to the people who claimed to love you. No one asked if you were okay on the nights you carried everyone else's crisis home with you, lying awake long after they had found peace in their own beds. No one wondered whether the constant pouring out was draining something in you that needed to be refilled. No one offered to carry your burden for even a single day, because in their eyes, you did not have burdens. You simply solved them. You became so skilled at appearing unshakable that you forgot how to ask for help, and eventually, you stopped believing anyone would offer it even if you did ask. I want you to hear this clearly. Your strength was never the problem. Strength is a gift, and I gave it to you for good reason. But strength without boundaries becomes exploitation, even when no one intends it that way. Strength without rest becomes a slow erosion of the very heart that strength was meant to protect. You were never supposed to be strong every single hour of every single day with no place to lay it down. Even the mightiest rivers need a season where the waters slow and rest before they continue flowing onward. You are allowed that season. You are allowed to be human, even while being strong. You have become so practiced at holding everything together that people forgot you were ever capable of falling apart. They built their stability on top of your steadiness without realizing how much effort it cost you to remain steady in the first place. And when, on rare occasions, you finally admitted you were struggling, some of them did not know how to respond because they had never seen that side of you before. Their confusion made you retreat even further into the role of the unshakable one, and so the cycle continued, year after year, until even you began to forget what it felt like to be cared for, rather than relied upon. This is the quiet danger of strength left unchecked. It convinces both you and everyone around you that your needs are optional, that your limits do not apply the way they apply to others, that you exist primarily to hold the world steady for people who never stop to ask whether the ground beneath your own feet is still solid. I did not design you to function that way indefinitely. I designed you with limits on purpose, because limits were never meant to be a flaw in your design. They were meant to remind you, again and again, that you were never created to operate alone. For so long you believed that I wanted you to prove yourself. You believed that earning my approval required relentless effort, flawless performance, and endless demonstration that you were worthy of love. You thought that if you just tried hard enough, sacrificed enough, achieved enough, you would finally feel secure in my affection. But that belief was never something I gave you. It was something fear taught you, and it has been quietly stealing your peace for years. What I actually want from you is far simpler than proving anything. I want you to trust me. I do not need you to perform for my love, because my love was never something you had to earn in the first place. It was given before you took your first breath, before you made your first mistake, before you accomplished a single thing the world would call impressive. You have spent so much energy trying to prove you deserve good things, when the truth is that I already decided you were worth loving long before you could do anything to influence that decision. There is a difference between carrying everything alone and allowing your Father to walk beside you in the carrying. When you carry alone, you measure your worth by how much weight you can bear without breaking. When you let me carry alongside you, you discover that your worth was never tied to the weight at all. You were never meant to white-knuckle your way through every hardship, gritting your teeth and insisting you do not need anyone, including me. I am not asking you to do less out of weakness. I am inviting you into a partnership where you finally stop pretending you were built to handle everything by yourself. This truth marks a turning point, and I want you to feel the weight of it settling gently rather than heavily. You do not need to prove your worth to me through exhaustion. You do not need to earn rest through suffering first. You are not closer to my heart because you are depleted, and you are not further from my heart when you allow yourself to receive help. The whole framework you built, where struggle equals devotion and rest equals failure, was never a framework I gave you. I am inviting you to release it now completely, and to trust that my love for you was never dependent on how much you could carry. Consider how differently you would have lived if someone had told you this truth years earlier, before the striving became a habit so deeply ingrained that you no longer recognized it as striving at all. Consider how much energy you spent trying to earn something that was freely given the moment I formed you. There is grief in realizing how long you carried a burden that was never required, and I want you to allow yourself that grief without rushing past it. It is appropriate to mourn the years spent proving instead of resting, and it is equally appropriate to feel relief that those years do not have to define the years still ahead of you. Trust is not the absence of effort. It is the redirection of effort away from anxious striving and toward peaceful obedience. You can still work diligently, still show up for the responsibilities genuinely yours to carry, still pursue the dreams I placed within you, all without the frantic undertone of needing to prove something to a father who has never once required proof. That shift, from proving to trusting, will change the texture of every single day you live from here forward. Picture your hand, clenched tightly around something you have held for years, fingers aching from the grip you refuse to loosen. That is what your soul looks like right now, holding tightly to burdens out of habit, out of fear, out of the belief that letting go means losing control entirely. I am asking you to open that hand, not to drop everything carelessly into chaos, but to release your grip gently, the way you would finally set down a bag you have carried for miles, feeling your shoulders rise back into their natural place. For the first time in longer than you can remember. Picture the backpack you have carried, filled with every disappointment, every unmet expectation, every harsh word spoken against you. It has grown heavier with each passing year, each loss, each silent struggle you never spoke about. I am asking you to set it down, not somewhere far from you, but right here, at my feet, where it has always belonged. You were never meant to carry it to the end of your life. You were only meant to carry it long enough to recognize that it was time to lay it down. Picture the rope wrapped tightly around your chest, the one tied by every obligation you said yes to when your heart was screaming no, every responsibility you accepted because refusing felt impossible, every role you played because stepping away felt like abandoning the people who needed you. I am asking you to loosen that rope now, breath by breath, until you can finally fill your lungs completely without the tightness that has become so familiar you almost forgot it was there at all. And picture your head bowed low under the accumulated weight of years spent striving, surviving, and silently suffering. I'm asking you to lift it, not in pride, but in the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands that they were never meant to walk through life, staring at the ground, eyes fixed only on the next obstacle. You were created to walk with your head lifted toward the one who has been holding the path steady for you all along, even on the days you could not see it clearly. Understand this clearly, my child. You cannot receive my peace while your arms are still full of everything you refuse to set down. Peace and self-reliance cannot occupy the same space inside your heart at the same time. You cannot hold tightly to control with one hand and reach out to grace with the other. There comes a moment where you must choose, and that moment has arrived for you now. Will you keep gripping what has exhausted you for years, or will you finally release it into hands far more capable than your own? I know that letting go feels dangerous to you, almost reckless, because you have spent so long believing that your grip is the only thing preventing everything from collapsing entirely. But consider this honestly. Has your grip ever actually given you the peace you were searching for? Or has it only given you the illusion of control while the exhaustion continued to build beneath the surface? Releasing what you carry is not the same as abandoning your responsibilities. It is simply acknowledging that you were never meant to hold the outcome of every situation in your own two hands, as though the universe itself depended on your unrelenting effort alone. There will be a moment, perhaps even today, when you feel the familiar urge to grab everything back up again, to resume carrying what you just set down, because old habits do not dissolve in a single instant. When that moment comes, I want you to remember this conversation. Remember that you already chose to release it once, and choose again. Healing rarely arrives in one decisive motion. More often, it arrives in the quiet decision, repeated daily, to keep your hands open rather than clenched. There were seasons in your life when you believed I had gone silent, when your prayers seemed to disappear into an empty sky, and your cries felt unheard by anyone, including me. I understand why you believed that. Silence, when you are desperate for an answer, can feel indistinguishable from absence. But silence was never absence. I was present in every single moment you believed I had left you, closer than you could have imagined, even when I said nothing at all. I was there when you cried in the dark, in the kind of weeping that comes from somewhere so deep it does not even make a sound at first, only shaking shoulders and a chest that feels like it might collapse under the pressure of holding everything in for so long. I did not watch from a distance during those nights. I was as close as the air filling your lungs, gathering every tear, even the ones you never let anyone else witness. I was there the day you lost your job and walked out of that building, wondering how you would explain it to the people depending on you, wondering whether you had failed, wondering what would come next. I knew the outcome before you walked through that door that morning, and I was already preparing what would come after, even while you stood in the parking lot feeling like your entire world had collapsed beneath you. I was there when you lost someone you loved, standing beside you at gatherings filled with people offering condolences that could not reach the deepest part of your grief. I was there in the weeks afterward, when everyone else returned to their normal lives, and you were left sitting with an absence too large for words. I felt every wave of that grief alongside you, even on the days you were too numb to feel anything yourself. I was there in your loneliest prayers, the ones whispered through tears in rooms where no one else could hear you, the ones where you did not even have words, only sounds of desperation rising from a heart that did not know how to keep going. I heard every one of those prayers as clearly as if you had spoken them in the loudest room in the world. Distance has never separated you from me, my child. Not once, not for a single moment of your entire life. I was there on the ordinary days too, not just the catastrophic ones, because faith is not only tested in crisis, it is also lived in the unremarkable hours that make up most of a life. I was there on the long commutes when your mind wandered toward worry. I was there in the waiting rooms, the quiet kitchens, the early mornings when the house was still dark and you sat alone with your coffee, wondering whether things would ever feel lighter. None of those moments were too small for my attention, because nothing about your life has ever been too small for me to notice. You may look back across the years and see a timeline scattered with hardship, wondering why so much of it seemed to happen all at once, wondering where I was during the seasons that felt unbearable. I want you to know that every difficult season you survived was also a season where I was actively working, even when the working was invisible to you. Sometimes the most significant movement happens beneath the surface, in places you cannot yet see, preparing outcomes you could not have arranged on your own, no matter how hard you tried. There is a change that needs to take place in you now, and it begins with learning a word you have rarely allowed yourself to say. That word is no. For years you have said yes to demands that drained you, yes to expectations that exhausted you, yes to relationships that required everything from you while offering little in return. You said yes because refusing felt unkind, because you feared disappointing people, because somewhere inside you believed your value depended on being endlessly available to everyone but yourself. I am giving you wisdom now to recognize the difference between genuine love and unhealthy obligation. Love gives freely, without resentment building quietly beneath the surface. Obligation gives out of fear, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish for finally protecting your own well-being. I want you to learn the difference, because living from obligation has been slowly hollowing you out, even while it looked, from the outside, like generosity. I am giving you courage to set boundaries that protect your heart without guilt attached to them. A boundary is not cruelty. A boundary is simply the recognition that you are a person with limits, created by me with finite energy and finite time, never intended to give endlessly without ever being refilled. You can love people and still say no to what destroys you. You can care deeply and still protect the parts of yourself that need protecting. These are not contradictions. They are simply maturity arriving in your life at last. I am giving you the strength to finally say, "This does not belong to me," when someone tries to hand you their unprocessed pain disguised as your responsibility. You can say it gently, but you must say it. Their feelings are not always yours to manage. Their choices are not always yours to fix. Their unresolved guilt is not always yours to absorb. You are allowed to support people you love without becoming the container for everything they refuse to deal with themselves. You are no longer required to carry the emotions other people refuse to face on their own. You are no longer required to carry guilt for circumstances you did not create and cannot control. You are no longer required to carry responsibility for choices that were never yours to make. This is not coldness. This is freedom, finally arriving in a life that has spent far too long mistaking exhaustion for love. There will be people in your life who resist this change in you, because they have grown comfortable with the version of you who never refused anything, who absorbed every emotional spillover without complaint, who could always be counted on regardless of the cost to your own peace. Their resistance does not mean you are doing something wrong. Often, it simply means they are encountering a boundary for the first time and do not yet know how to respond to it. Stand firm anyway. Healthy boundaries will sometimes feel like rejection to people who benefited from you having none. I want you to understand that boundaries are not walls built to keep love out. They are doors built with hinges, allowing you to choose intentionally when to open yourself fully and when to protect your heart from being trampled by people who have never learned to handle it gently. You can love someone deeply and still decline to be their emotional dumping ground. You can support someone faithfully and still refuse to carry guilt that belongs entirely to them. This is the maturity I am cultivating in you now, and it will serve you for the rest of your life. A new season is beginning for you, my child, and I want you to recognize it when it arrives, because it may look quieter than you expect. There will be a life ahead of you that feels lighter, not because every problem in your world has disappeared, but because you are no longer carrying every problem alone. You will sleep more peacefully, not because your circumstances became perfect overnight, but because your heart finally released what it had no business holding on to in the first place. You will laugh more freely, the kind of laughter that rises unguarded from somewhere deep, the kind you may have forgotten you were even capable of after years of carrying weight that pressed the lightness out of you. You will pray with less heaviness, no longer approaching me with a list of burdens to manage on your own with my approval requested afterward, but instead coming to me simply to be near me, the way a child runs toward a parent, not because they need something, but because being near them feels like home. You will discover what it means to truly rest, not the kind of rest that comes from collapsing in exhaustion after pushing yourself past every limit, but the kind of rest that flows from trust, the quiet confidence that the world will not fall apart if you finally stop holding it together by yourself. This is the season I am inviting you into now, and it is closer than you think. It does not require you to fix everything first. It simply requires you to finally set something down. In this new season, you will notice small changes before you notice the larger ones. You will catch yourself breathing more slowly during moments that once would have sent your heart racing. You will respond to setbacks with a steadiness that surprises even you, not because the setbacks have become smaller, but because you are no longer facing them entirely on your own. You will find yourself capable of enjoying a sunset, a meal, a quiet conversation, without the constant background hum of worry competing for your attention the way it once did. People around you will notice the difference as well, even if they cannot quite articulate what has changed. They will sense a calmness in you that was not there before, a steadiness that no longer depends on circumstances cooperating perfectly. Some will be drawn to that calmness, wanting to understand its source. When that happens, you will have the opportunity to tell them what you are learning now, that peace was never something to manufacture through effort, but something to receive through surrender. This is the moment, my child, the one this entire message has been leading toward. I am asking you now to place your burdens at my feet. Bring every worry that has kept you awake long past midnight, every fear that whispers doubt into your quietest moments, every failure you believed defined you more than it ever should have, every tear you swallowed because you thought no one had room to receive it. Bring all of it here, to me, right now, in this very moment. You were not created to live beneath the weight of this world. You were created to walk in the peace I have prepared for you, a peace that does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly, a peace that exists even in the middle of the storm, because it was never rooted in the storm to begin with. From this day forward, when you feel your shoulders growing heavy again, I want you to remember this truth above all else. That weight was never yours to carry. Bring me the worry about tomorrow that keeps stealing the peace available to you today. Bring me the fear of not being enough, the one that has followed you since childhood, whispering that you must constantly do more to deserve the air you breathe. Bring me the failures you have replayed 1,000 times, the ones you believe disqualified you from a future worth hoping for. None of that disqualifies you. None of that defines you. It only defines what you survived, and survival was never meant to be the end of your story. Bring me the tears you have never let fall in front of another living soul, the ones reserved only for the shower, the car, the pillow late at night when everyone else was asleep. I received every single one of those tears the moment they fell, and I am receiving the ones still waiting to fall now. You do not have to hide them from me. You never had to hide them from me. I have always wanted the real you, tears and all, far more than I ever wanted the composed version you have presented to everyone else. Let me carry it, and you, my beloved child, continue walking forward in the peace I prepared for you, long before you ever knew what fear felt like, long before the world taught you to measure your worth by how much you could endure. That peace has been waiting for you all along. It is waiting for you now. Take a quiet moment, wherever you are, and let your heart settle into stillness. Whisper a simple prayer, even if it is only a few words formed in silence. Ask for peace where there has been only pressure. Ask to be taught how to release what was never meant to be held so tightly. Ask for the wisdom to know the difference between what truly belongs to you and what you have only been carrying out of habit, fear, or love, mistaken for obligation. Give yourself permission, in this quiet space, to set something down. It does not need to be everything at once. It can be one fear, one regret, one expectation that has weighed on you longer than it ever should have. Set it down gently, and notice how your breathing changes when you do. Notice how the room feels different, even if nothing around you has changed at all, because something inside you finally has. You were never meant to walk this far carrying this much. The road ahead of you does not require the same weight that brought you here. Walk forward now, lighter than you have walked in years, knowing that the burden you have laid down has already been received by hands far stronger than your own, and that you are free, truly free, to simply walk in peace. Remember, in the weeks ahead, that this release is not a single event, but an ongoing practice. There will be mornings when the old weight tries to creep back onto your shoulders out of sheer habit, and in those mornings, you will simply choose again to set it down. There will be evenings when worry knocks softly at the door of your heart, and you will answer that knock with the quiet confidence that you no longer have to let it in. This is not a one-time prayer that fixes everything permanently. It is a daily surrender, a continual returning to the truth that you were never meant to carry alone. You are loved, not for what you accomplish, not for how much you can endure, not for how perfectly you hold everything together for everyone around you. You are loved simply because you exist, because you were formed with intention, because your life carries a purpose that was settled long before the world ever placed a single burden on your shoulders. Carry that truth with you now, gently, the way you would carry something fragile and precious, because that is exactly what it is. And walk forward, my beloved child, into the peace that has been waiting for you all along.